justice within the art installation that we did has 6 what I would term as pylons or totems or pillars. Those pylons are made in 2 sections, 2 halves. Each half has a single word. The word itself is divided in 2 parts. Because it's divided in 2 parts, it's viewed in perspective. It requires a certain distance from the actual pylon to read the word. If you're at some oblique angle, you're only seeing half of the word, and it's illegible for the most part, especially if you're not aware of the project. You're seeing bits and pieces of words. So there's 6 different locations on site, 1 for each pylon, that puts you in the correct position to be able to read the word. This is interesting to me because that particular set of words references the relationship between the courts building and the municipal court and the public. It represents how the courts begin to relate to the public. There are words like justice and equality. So that word being split in half allows the interpretation to be more like an agreement between those 2 halves of the words, so that when you see them and they come together, it's an agreement that's formed, and there may be a little bit of tension when it's not together. It asks you to kind of fill in the blanks a little bit. I interpret that as being a little bit of our belief in the court system, or our faith in the court system as an arbiter of justice. There are 2 sets of words that are in duality against each other. One set of words is on the inside, which begins to represent individual conflict. People that the reason that they may be going to the courts, whether they are committed a potential crime, larceny, or if they just have a traffic violation or something like that, dispute about custody, right? Things of that nature. The exterior of the pylons, the taxonomy of words, has to do with the court itself as being the adjudicator or the arbitrator of those issues and how the public relates to the larger community. The selection of those words, once we developed those taxonomies to figure out what particular groupings of words, BJ was working with the courts themselves, with individual judges, and in trying to develop the most appropriate taxonomy of words. We don't necessarily have a background in law and a really broad knowledge of the municipal court system, so we rely on them to give us clarity about some of those words and what they should be or shouldn't be. We had a desire to bring text back onto public buildings. If you look at historic buildings, whether Greek buildings or Roman buildings or even Egyptian buildings, they're hieroglyphics, right? Inscribed into the buildings. The Romans and the Greeks put text on buildings, and a lot of the times, most of the times, for the majority of human history, when there were text on buildings, that information was not necessarily to sell you something. On large public buildings, that information was there to uphold public ideals, right? A lot of that information has been lost or been taken off of buildings, and buildings have been named through other ways, whether it's corporate sponsorship, or individual donors. So we've lost a lot of text on buildings that are for the public good. When we first started, part of our mission was to bring that back into buildings, to have text that would be on buildings and within the realm of the building that would be about some public ideals. This particular piece allows for people to pass through some of those words, those large words, those 6 large words. Because they're separated in halves, it makes a space on the inside, and you can enter into that space. And it's not just about entering into the space. To me and to PJ as well, you are actively entering into the word. You're like part of justice or part of equality. A participant may not see it that way, but that's how we see their involvement in it. They're not just bystanders. Everybody's an actor, everybody's a performer. And when you see almost all of our projects, especially the more recent ones, we view people as part of the work.